Good evening, and welcome back to the weird and the wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. And I hope everybody is doing well this evening. Welcome Alana and Danny the dog. Good to see you guys on. So this is part 2 of our live on the undead. So I think it's going to be a pretty good one. So as we start off, just as a little bit of a reminder of what we have done thus far, we've been looking at a whole collection of different ones from around the world. Melinda, welcome. And we are going to now finish off our live with varying forms of things. But, ask for my name. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you on board. I'm going to remind you, though, that we have established that the undead are neither living nor dead in the proper sense, but rather somewhere in between. And we will need to discuss at some stage precisely why. Why do they exist? Thank you very much for the likes there. I do appreciate. But as we get started, I'm going to remind everybody that we have one rule on the channel, and that is to say that don't be rude, because if you are rude, we will give you the boot. We've had far too many trolls that have turned up and all the rest of it, so we just boot. The aim of the channel is to enjoy, to learn, to find out interesting things and satisfy our curiosity, and in no way do we promote nor deride anything. We just like to learn. But that said, what is rude? Anyone that is purely here to disrupt the channel. Caleb, welcome. Welcome, welcome. So yeah, if you're here to mess things up for everybody else, that's when we would be giving the boot. But we're going to point out that we do enjoy different opinions. You don't have to believe or disbelieve. So long as you are polite about it, you can have any particular viewpoint that you like, and we encourage you to share it. Lots of comments, lots and lots and lots of likes, shares, subscribes, and all the rest of the good things that keep the channel going. We rely on you for it to make it work. And Gost says, Jesus loves you. Thank you very much. I'm sure he does. I do appreciate good wishes. But nevertheless, we stick to our points and our theme. So we generally go around the world and look at different countries and cultures and opinions on things. Oh, and tears. Okay, that sounds a bit just short. Which movie was that? Do tell, do tell. Okay, what is it about? What is it called? Tell us more. Don't leave us in suspense, sir. Ah, yes, of course. An absolute classic, I think, and very, very well done. Some of the best movies, it doesn't really matter what time they were made, they are nevertheless well worth watching and are great in that regard. Yes, I enjoyed that movie. I've seen it 2 or 3 times, I think. I'm just going to grab my blankie. Oh! It's definitely colder and wetter than is truly wondrous. So we are going to make sure that we can keep a little warm. Yes, it's definitely been some seriously wet weather lately, and in the last couple of days it's been tipping down. I don't know how it is by you guys, but man, there we go, much better. Now we can operate without freezing to death. So, the undead, and in specific, to the most part, we are generally looking at zombies. So, a much unloved form of undead. It doesn't get the nice treatment that the vampires and other higher undead get, but nevertheless, vampires, of course, are very much undead. That is absolutely the case. So, no doubt about that. But of course, many different varieties, different views around the world of what they are, but by and large, generally they are considered to be bad. Huge thanks for all those likes coming through. I do appreciate very much indeed. So, moving along, we shall begin with a rather nice quote. He didn't sound American. Well, some people said he did, some people said he didn't. That was something of an argument at the time it first came out, I seem to recall. So, yeah, I don't know. I think he did a good job. It was Mel Gibson, wasn't it? So, I don't know. I enjoyed the movie regardless, and yes, very good music. So, Bram Stoker's novel Dracula is one of the absolute classics about the undead, and in that, Van Helsing, the main character, describes the undead as the following. Before we do anything, let me tell you this. It is out of lore and experience of the ancients, and of all those who have studied the powers of the undead. When they become such, there comes with the change the curse of immortality. They cannot die, but must go on, age after age, adding new victims and multiplying the evils of the world. For all that die from preying of the undead become themselves undead and prey on their kind, and the circle goes on forever, widening as like the ripples of a stone thrown into the water. Oh, the quote goes on. Sounds like I'm in a public area. No, not exactly, but I am in the computer room, as it were, at home, and I have a couple of the guys here that are online doing varying games as well, so I'm not alone tonight. They like to play, so they've got their games going. Thanks, MRV. Thanks for the likes. But then they like to listen as well. So we have company. Courses on what? There's a thought. Courses. No, I don't do courses, unfortunately. Maybe I should. How to deal with the weird things out there. There are all kinds of ways, depending on what you believe, of course. So, it would be nice to be able to teach. I must admit, I have done in the past. I was a teacher for a short while in a high school. But that was quite a long time ago. I taught English. But I have never given courses on what I do my lives on, insofar as it matters. So, we've spoken of ghosts, poltergeists, race dragas, and the Jiangshi and such, but there are still a couple more of the creatures that need to be spoken of as we go along. And the first one we are going to look at tonight is the mummy. Now, of course, as you well know, the legends of the mummy basically is Egyptian in origin, and less perhaps in origin intentional, and more it was part of their religion, but it has certainly been taken up, especially by modern stories and films. So essentially, the mummy in origin was a method of preserving the dead, especially important dead, and as you know, using various religious rituals and tools. The insides were removed and placed in cornucopic jars to be preserved separate to the body itself, which was then mummified and wrapped in linen with varying chemicals and so on to ensure that it stayed good for centuries in that regard. How successful that might have proved is another question, but with it, of course, came a number of spells and rituals to protect the one that the tomb was of, but also to ensure that the gods and things that were interred with the king or whoever it was, the important person, would be protected. And legends began to arise that oh, does it? It shows what courses I could offer. I didn't know it showed that. That's actually quite fascinating. Yes, please do that. I'm quite curious. You can ask what courses I could offer. I could teach you how to deal with ghosts. There's one thing, I suppose. But yes, that I didn't know that was up there. See, TikTok does strange things that you might not realize. That's very interesting. Ah, that's brilliant. Anyone out there wanting courses on how to deal with the living dead? Certainly I've done enough research to be able to give a course. What do you think? Would it be a worthwhile course to take? So the real life, scientifically approved of, as it were, mummy is a preserved form of burial. And of course, it was not only for people. They say that over 1 million animal mummies have been found in Egypt, most of which were cats, which is unsurprising. So they say that the majority of mummies that have been found were from between about 450 and 250 BC. So, but this deliberate mummification in human cultures goes back way further than the Egyptian ones that we know the most of. It goes back to 10,000 BC and has been documented to have existed across Southeast Asia, China, New Guinea, Australia, and many others. So it says that it's possible that mummification methods were used going back even maybe 20,000 years, which is quite a lot. Well, I will have to look into that and see what they say. How can I purchase your courses? Is an option to click on. I literally didn't know it was there. But hey, we could do that. Well, like, share, subscribe, and all the rest of that, and that would count, and then you can be part of the subscription of lives here and join in, and who knows, get special badges and what have you, and we will We will teach you as much as we can about the weird, the wonderful, the strange, and the mythical. So, yeah, mummies. Ancient Egypt, which, because of the varied curses and spells placed upon them, if you disturb them, they might rise. And of course, this was a possibility that was taken up by modern movies. Huge thanks for those likes again there, guys. And Karina's joined us. Yay! Oh, and thank you ever so much for those gifties there, Karina. That is very, very kind of you. Welcome, welcome. I haven't seen you for a while. I hope you're in fine and fabulous form and are doing immensely well. So, yeah. So we're doing The Living Dead. Something to give you the chills. It is the month of Halloween after all, so we have to talk about suitably creepy things in that regard. I wanted to ask you, Karina, on completely off topic. Shane is an expert on planes and their building and all the rest of it. Does he have his license to fly, or is he intending to get it? I wanted to ask you purely because I have a young lady in the family here who is got her eyes on becoming a pilot herself, and I wondered what Shane had to say about the entire thing, because maybe it might be a good idea to get her to chat to him and get some advice from an expert, because he does know a hell of a lot about planes, which, yes, absolutely, 100%. I just wanted to throw it out at you while you were there and alive. It suddenly struck me. But yes, moving along so as not to bore everybody else with things not related. So mummies have been found all over, from ancient Egypt to others. There's some very interesting ones that were found in the spirit cave of Fallon, Nevada, which is quite interesting in that regard. And they were 9,400 years old. So before this, the oldest known deliberate mummy was a child. One of the Chinchorro mummies found in the Camarones Valley in Chile, which was 5050 BC. The oldest known naturally mummified human is actually just the head, alas, which was 6,000 years old, found in 1936 in the Cueva de las Momias in Argentina. So some, because of the environment, naturally mummified, which is quite interesting. Thank you for the likes. And some were deliberately. And of course the deliberately mummified ones lasted a lot longer. But in mythology at least, they are said to be able to rise and get revenge if you mess with their tomb or their place of rest. Now, that's quite an interesting and somewhat creepy idea. Now, in this specific case, the undead in that in that case are not. They're not ones that go out to get at people in general, like many of the others. I mean, if you think about it, the vampires are active hunters and what have you, whereas the mummies, it seems, their aim is simply to protect their tomb. which is a very different sort of set. So we cannot claim that they are as such evil, whereas the vampires, of course, we absolutely do think are evil in that regard. The mummies are simply protective. So if you ever find yourself being chased by one, it was your own fault by and large. Now, of course, you get different varieties. The anthropogenic and the spontaneous. So spontaneous would include things like Otzi, which they became what they were just because of the environment, whereas the anthropogenic means that they were created that way by people. And weirdly enough, no fireworks where I am, at least. I don't think they're allowed in our area at all. People are where I am, people are very pet-centric. So they are anti-fireworks. So some of the best anthropogenic mummies are actually Christian mummies. How's that for weird? You would have thought they would be Egyptian, but no, the best preserved are Christian. And in St. Michael's Church in Keminmaa in Finland, you have the vicar Niklaus Rungius, who apparently is one of the best preserved ever in the world. So there you go. But the legends, such as they are in mythology, say that they will arise from their tombs to chase down whatever was done. Now, when they were made, of course, as we know, they generally are wrapped in layers of cloth. And certainly for the Egyptian ones, the priest would place protective amulets within the wrappings to guard the decedent from evil. So once it's completely wrapped, it's coated in resin, and then the resin is, the mummy is put in a coffin which is also sealed with resin, and then often they had more than one coffin inside each other. So they say that there was a multi-level type thing going on, and there were ranks dependent on your rank in society. You might get a better version of mummification. So the richer you were, and the most expensive method was obviously the one that would keep you best preserved, whereas if you were poor, you basically were just soaked in natron, which is a salt-based chemical which allows you to preserve things. Welcome to Endless Thoughts. It's wonderful to see you on as well. We're getting all the good peoples here today. Now, of course, along with all the different varieties, Egyptian, Christian, and more, some say that the so-called mummy might very well be preserved not by man nor by the environment, but by God himself, and that no corruption would be allowed on the holy person's body, which is pretty cool. Is it true? We don't know. We know that mummies have been found in the Canary Islands, in Libya, and believe it or not, South Africa, there was one found in the Baviaanskloof wilderness area, nicknamed Moses of all, and they reckon it was around 2,000 years old. It was the mummy of an indigenous Khoi. And the creature in question, whatever is left thereof, has been put in the Albany Museum in Grahamstown, where apparently you can go and look at it. So mummies are absolutely real, but do they rise from the tomb? Well, the stories say so. Whether or not it is true is another question. Most of the stories about walking mummies, those that get up and get at you, seem to come from Egypt rather than anywhere else. Most don't say that they would get up and get at you, but there you go. They are a popular modern version of things. And just looking at the list of places that they found them, it's a very, very common thing that they have done. Now, the creepiest version, of course, which we haven't touched on yet, are in fact generally Buddhist. And this is weird because they believe they can achieve a level of mortality through what is referred to as self-mummification. And if that isn't creepy, I don't know what is. They manage to remain incorrupt, where they were self-mortifying their flesh to death. It was practiced for quite a while, and Japan has a number, but in the early 1900s in Japan it became outlawed. So it's not something permitted anymore, but they say that they buried themselves, and with some assistance, in the lotus position, put in a vessel with drying agents, surrounded by bricks and more, and then this is while still alive, mark you, and then after 3 years exhumed, preserved with paint and such and what have you, and then put on view. Now, I got to say that does sound fairly fraught, and I do believe I would not have enjoyed something like that at all. But nevertheless, there you go. You can get yourself mummified if you really want to, which is quite terrifying. But yeah, they by and large are a decent form of undead, as long as you don't disturb their tomb, just so as you know. The next one that we want to talk about is not from the Middle East at all, but from Europe, and is the white. What is a white? Now, it's something found in the Chthonic cultures and British or English cultures. It's found in Middle English, Anglo-Norman and similar, and of course very much in modern fantasies as well. And it's described as a creature or being that might be considered neither dead nor alive, a kind of strange creature in supernatural origin that, thank you. We got a heart me. That's awesome. You guys are amazing. And hearts from Endless Thoughts I see, and more. You are spoiling me. Ice creams and gifts and hearts and all the rest of it. That is really, really cool. Thank you so much to Endless Thoughts and to Karina for your great kindness. I do appreciate that massively. So whites are, how can we say, half alive, half dead, it can be fairly generic in certain ways, and it can be either good or bad. So the supernatural aspects of the saints and even of Jesus, they say, could be referred to as a white on the good side. They say it may even refer in its origin to a deity because it is a supernatural being. But nevertheless, you have the sweet white, the good ghosts. But over time, this has changed. So in Geoffrey Chaucer's works like the Reeve's Tale, Farewell, Malane, Sweet White, where Elaine says goodbye to the spirit of his love. In A Monk's Tale also they are referred to, and several others. Now, in the Old Norse they spoke of the Vertir, which is their version of a white. And of course a Vertir is a spirit, and it could be a good or a bad. You had your Landvertin, the guardian spirits. You had the Vitavertir, the witch white or sorcerers, and the Bjargvertin, the helping spirits. But as things have come forward, and partly due to modern storytelling like good old J.R.R. Tolkien, they get referred to, especially to bad ones, the recurring undead. And that's come forward into George R.R. Martin's novels. I wonder if George took his R.R. from J.R.R. Tolkien. That's a question we don't have an answer to yet. But nevertheless, so they became to refer in modern times as only the bad ones. But that was not originally the case by any means at all. They could absolutely be good ones as well. So a white is just a spirit of some variety. But in modern times it means something more like a lich, and liches we will get to, so do not worry about that. Now, having spoken of the Vertir are whites. But we will find that's the name in the Chthonic. And there, of course, you see how they are not just the undead. They include the Alpha, the Dvergar, the Jotnar, the Aesir and the Vanir, as well as your varying others like your Landsvertir, your Fjallvertir, your Sjorvetir, and your Skogvertir, as well as, yes, the bad ones. So you've got all varieties in this differentiation. Nevertheless, and moving along, because that we have to speak of, in terms of your undead, you get quite a lot of different varieties. We've spoken briefly of revenants. We've spoken of the Dragir, which turn up in a number of things. We've spoken of the Jiangshi as well, and the Vetala. But we need to speak of some of the ones that are less well known in order to keep ourselves up to date in that regard. And one such one that we need to refer to, if you will, among our favored zombies, is the South American dry corpse, whatever that might be, a myth that is known in the southeast and southern region of Brazil. And a dry corpse is the corpse of a man so evil that after his death, his soul was rejected by both heaven and hell, and the earth refused to claim his flesh, turning him into a skeletal zombie that wanders around, and his only purpose in life is to terrify. Now that sounds a lot more like your decent variety of zombified undead in that regard. Huge thanks for the likes there. Hello, Bubbles. So yeah, as we can see, the modern view, as it were, of your undead is absolutely negative. They're generally considered not good in modern views. But in older times this wasn't the case. As we saw, the Draga were not evil, and neither were whites. But certainly the older and nastier varieties, it seems, were. We can also speak of the Honeona from Japan, translated literally as bone woman. It's a skeleton disguised as a beautiful woman who attracts unwary men in order to drain their vital force. So kind of like a vampire, but not merely blood that they are after, it's your life force. And even after death, the Honeona will keep up strong feelings for her lover that will make her rise from the grave every night and wander to his house. Her vision at first will be shocking for those who believed her dead, but it can become a reason for happiness that blinds them from the fact that she is in fact dead and it should not be there, because she is moved by love to return from the dead to be with her lover. However, in order to keep going, she must drain the life force of those around, and therefore she is very bad. Now, it is said if that you are a holy person and you pray often, you will see through her disguise and know that actually she is an evil and awful undead. So the sad part in this is that even though she comes out of love to the one she loves, she will drain his life force bit by bit, and he will get weak and sick, and eventually, without any interference, he will pass on and be taken by the arms of death and by his love, which is sort of sad and terrifying at the same time. Quite worrying. The Gasha Dokoro is another Japanese undead, but this one's interesting. Well, funnily enough, one of the things that was pointed out to me just the other day was that I always wear a hood, and I do. This is just my grey hoodie tonight, but I have a proper hood, which I, in fact, hold on. Do I have it here? I do. Here we go. Just for you, Endless Thoughts, just for you. I have my hood with me, if I can find the way to put it on. There we go. Just for you. There you go. Does it give it more atmosphere? There is my hood for you guys. So yes, we will make a point of wearing it for you. This is my winter hood, which is reversible, black on one side and dark brown on the other. So I have that. I have a summer one, which is much lighter, but that's just a black one. And would you believe, the hood that not this one, the other summer one, is actually the one from the robe I used to wear when I was a monk. So there you go. I got used to wearing hoods in that regard. And these are very easy to make. They're made from literally squares of cloth, which is pretty cool. And there's a whole ton of patterns you can get online, and literally you sew the squares together in a certain way, and then you can have a hood. Yes, that would be a great idea. We should have strange bones hoods, possibly with suitable branding on the back. They hang down the back and the front as well. They're an outside your clothing type hood. So yes, we should make hoods and then send them to the fans. I think that would be a wonderful idea. What do you guys think? Endless Thoughts want one? Does anyone else think it would be a good idea to get a Strange Bones hood? I actually know somebody who could make them for me even. They're very simple. You literally take the squares of cloth and you sew them together, and Bob's your uncle, you have a proper hood. This one's quite a deep one, as you can see. I can get lost inside it if I want to, which is pretty cool. And of course, being somebody that is challenged in the hair department, I find them really useful when I go hiking to keep the sun off me. Well, there you go. We can. As I say, the pattern is incredibly simple. And making the double-sided one with different colors is pretty cool as well. That's easy to do. You just literally make the squares of cloth in different colors. Somebody was telling me today I should get coffee mugs branded not Strange Bones but Strange Beans. So there you go. Well, maybe we must have a word with Eugene and get some strange beans mugs for coffee and some hoods. So you can wear your hood and be part of the Strange Bones crowd. I think that would be very cool indeed. So yeah. Let me know, all of you who are watching, whether or not you would be interested in a Strange Bones hood, and we'll see what we can do to possibly get that. Oh, that is real name. That's rather cool. That's brilliant. Well, he's on now live, so there we go. I will see what I can do to arrange one for you, and see if I can make a plan to get it to you. That would be very cool. So yeah, okay, so the Gasodokuro is a skeleton, but what makes it very special is that it is 15 times larger than a normal person, and if it spies a human, it will grab them and bite their head off. They are created by the assembled bones of those who have starved to death. And the way to avoid it is to run before it has a chance to grab you. Usually you can hear a ringing in your ears when it is about to strike. So if you ever get a weird ringing in your ears, run like hell, or the Gasodokuro will get you. Now, one which is very interesting as well, also from Japan, which is an interesting thing that I haven't seen in other stories, is the ghost whale, the Abake Kujira, which is a skeleton whale that swims in the seas, and if you sail where it is and you see it, it brings terribly bad luck. It's said that the souls of dead whales may come back to get revenge over fishermen by bringing all sorts of chaos where it is seen, like the invasion of flames, whatever that might turn out to be, diseases and poverty in general. Oh, Endless Thoughts, send me a DM and I'll see what I can organize to get a hood for you. I think that would be very cool. We'll make a plan. Well, this is cotton cloth. I do find that cotton is the best material for a hood. Any preference on color? I mean, I suppose we could do it in any variety. This is plain black and plain brown. So there is that. Huge thanks for the likes there. But yes, it is quite good quality, though it's not heavy, so it's not terrible to... A fluffy one. I don't know how to make a fluffy one. But that would definitely keep your ears warm. Like something soft on the inside and cotton on the outside would probably go down well. I'll have to see what I can find out about how to make such things so they are suitably warm. As I say, I know somebody who can make such things, so I will speak to them and ask them what they say. A fluffy lined hood, so you can be suitably strange bonesy. I think that's stab proof. Goodness gracious! I think you can actually get that. There's a new kind of Kevlar weave that they do, but from what I understand, it is horrifically expensive. But it really does work, and I saw a demo that was done at Blade Show in America. Well, I saw the video, I didn't go there myself, where they actually showed that it does stop a blade. It is cut and stab proof, which is pretty impressive if you think about it. So yes, you can get a stab proof hoodie. But yeah, from what I understand, you'll be paying many dollars to get something like that. But it's gettable, it's doable, and yes, once it's sewn together in the correct pattern of squares, it will absolutely work. So there you are. True, but remember the kind of cloth was done in a special way. It was layered and very hot, so it was only worn in those countries where it's very cold, and they particularly would cross weave it. So you'd have the weave in one layer going one way, say horizontal, and then vertical on the next layer, then horizontal, then vertical. So the different weave, like putting heavy canvas together basically, would make it difficult to penetrate. Now, it was very effective from what I understand, even more so than leather, but the difficulty was that it was so very hot that you could become quite exhausted just from wearing it. So it worked in those places where it's very cold and was very, very effective in that time. But this was actually something they discovered, funnily enough, when the British knights went on the Crusades and they rocked up in the Middle East with their full plate mail and heavy canvas underlayers and woolen layers under that. They literally would pass out standing around. They couldn't take it, and quickly they took off all of their armor because literally the heat was too much for them, which is quite interesting. We should actually do an interesting sort of... Thank you very much for the follow there, King of Darkness. We should do a thing on arms and armor. There's a lot to be learnt from it. It's quite interesting. And there's some really cool armor and weapons around the world, which is well worth looking into, some of the weirder ones especially. So absolutely. Now, the next interesting thing to speak of in terms of the undead comes from Indonesia or Malaysia, and it's the Pontianak, which they say is a corruption of Perempuan Mati Beranak, which I've probably mispronounced. but nevertheless, she who has died in childbirth. And they're a particular kind of undead that, yes, as the name implies, are created when a woman dies in childbirth. They are vengeful undead, and they lure their victims to them with the cries of a baby or by taking the guise of a beautiful woman. And then when you go to them, they try to frighten or even kill you. They are said to attack their victims using sharp claws to tear out their guts, to devour them, to sustain themselves. That sounds particularly nasty. And the only way to stop a Pontianak is to push a nail into the back of their neck. Yeah, good luck doing that. I'm just going to throw it out there. That sounds like the kind of thing that would be very, very hard to do. So not the simplest trick in that regard. Now the next interesting one is the Jengangar. There's a mouthful for you. And this is a Scandinavian revenant depicted as animate corpses that have come back from the dead to spread disease and attack the living. So again, a bad one. These creatures are typically the result of suicides that can also be created from the murdered or from murderers. Their intentions vary in folklore depending on the era, ranging from creatures that require the assistance of the living in order to get their rest, to deadly disease spreaders that can kill with an illness-inducing pinch. They are featured in Viking myths and can be dispatched or warded off by carrying the coffin of the alleged creature around a church 3 times and using or wearing crucifixes to ward the creatures off, or possibly carving inscriptions into the grave of the dead facing the body, which sounds complicated and difficult. And Jay's back. Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. Always good to see you, my boy. Are you in good form? I hope you are very well indeed. And of course, you should be able to join the live soon. In fact, no, you should be able to join it tonight if you wanted to. So, yeah, interesting. Now, our next one is a revenant. Now, a revenant is in some ways a bit of a catch-all term because its name comes from the old French word meaning the returned. Huge thanks for the likes there. I do appreciate greatly. And the term is basically used to describe something that returns, and it can actually just refer to somebody who's been away for a long time, or very much, and anyone that has owned a cat knows how this works, a cat that turns up again. But also it is used to refer to the dead that have returned in that regard. So they are not just the undead, but they can be. So Jaden, quick question, seeing as you're here, curious to ask of you, Endless Thoughts has demanded a hood. Should I get some hoods made and have them for sale? What do you think? Weird and wonderful Strange Bones hoods. We shall have to look into it, I think. So in folklore, besides the originating meaning, a revenant is the spirit or animated corpse that is believed to have been revived from death to haunt the living, the returning one. And they turn up in various cultures, of course. This is English and Celtic, which is obviously another big influence in the English, and of course the Chthonic, which also is very much connected to. Now, the interesting thing is that these revenants can return for a variety of reasons, but usually none of it good. And the way to deal with it is you must put stones on the legs to stop it from getting up, and stones in their mouths to stop them from talking. And varying graves have been found, some of them as much as 4,000 years BC, from the Bronze Age, where they were built down, if you will, bricked into their tombs in order to stop them from getting up. Now, the term revenant has been used for a number of different types of undead, sometimes in a generic way for any undead, and others to refer to specific ones that were brought back for evil reason. They're always considered bad when they're brought back for evil reason, of course. Those that walk again, who live within the barrows, the barrow wights, which basically are like your drager in that regard. But even vampires might be referred to as a revenant in that regard as well. So maybe it is more catch-all than specific, but in modern stories they tend to refer to specific types of physical undead rather than the ghostly versions. So there is that. I think Jaden is playing computer games at the moment. He goes very quiet when he plays computer games as well. As long as he is having fun, that's wonderful. Now, the next interesting one is the Dullahan. And the Dullahan is important, particularly in this regard, because while he is absolutely undead, he is a very, very specific undead, not your usual term for a type. And this is an interesting one because he is a headless rider on a black horse. Now, why is this important? He carries his own head. Now, we know that there's the American story of the headless rider, which actually was true in that regard, though less supernatural and more real in that regard. So we have that. This is the Irish version. The Dullahan, or Duvlachan, if you will, is one of the unseelie, one of the dark fairy, the dark shay from the unseelie court, kind of a hobgoblin in a way. Du, of course, is Irish, meaning black or dark. So the Dullahan is a dark, angry, sullen, fierce, or malicious being, which does indeed cover all the meanings of dark. And he is occasionally referred to as Colleen Gan Chain, which means the one without a head. Now, he's depicted, as they say, either on a black horse or sometimes on a black coach, and occasionally carrying his head under his arm, and the severed head is said to be revolting in appearance. Such a head, as they say, no mortal ever saw before. It looked like a large cheese hung around with black pudding. No speck of colour enlivened the ashy paleness of the depressed features, the skin lying stretched over the unearthly surface, almost like the parchment head of a drum. Two fiery eyes of prodigious circumference, with strange and irregular motion, flashed like meteors. So that sounds suitably creepy enough for the Halloween month, I think. So there are varying stories of how he turns up and why, but by and large, meeting him is not something you want to do. He's either mounted on horse or on coach. He starts often, or appears first, near a graveyard or a carnel vault where the wicked is said to be buried. He arrives driving the death coach at the doorstep of the person whose death is approaching, and he may indeed come specially to let you know that you're next. So just like your banshee and other types of things like that, here's a warning. But they say that if you brandish something golden, it can force him to go. They say that you should never open the door to the coach if it arrives. Yeah, I'm pretty certain I wouldn't. I think that would probably be the last thing that I would want to do. Now they say that he can see with his severed head and scan the countryside for mortals about to die. So he also has a whip made from a human spine, which is a fairly frightening idea, which he uses to urge on his horses and possibly strike at those who are about to pass on, letting them know. It's definitely an awful one. Now, one of the best of the stories about him, which I will share with you, is the tale of the good woman, which recounts a peasant's encounter with a cloaked female who turns out to be the Dullahan. A peasant named Larry Darden, a member of the White Knights country at the foot of the Galtree Mountains in Galtimore, travels to Cashel, where he buys a horse, intending to sell it at Kildare Fair that June evening, and he offers a ride to a cloaked female, and when he grabs her to exact a kiss for payment for the ride, being a rude man, he then discovers that she is in fact the Dullahan. He loses consciousness, and when he awakes, he finds himself in the church ruins, where he finds a wheel of torture set with severed heads, and the headless Dullahans, both men and women, nobles and commoners of various occupations. He's offered a drink, and when he's about to compliment, his head is severed in mid-sentence, and when he comes to his senses, he has become one of them. So that's suitably creepy enough for you all? I think it might be. So the Dullahan, and they make their own more when they wish. But of course they are not the only ones. The next interesting one comes from Germanic folklore, and this is the Nachtzehrer, an undead vampire-like creature found in northern Germany that returns from the grave to feed on its living family or villagers, sometimes by casting its shadow or astrally reaching out to them, often created by suicide or accidental death. They were sometimes linked to the sounds of decomposition in the grave, and they could be prevented by placing coins in the mouth of the deceased or by decapitation. They are a kind of Wiederganger, or undead creature. They were typically, as we said, somebody who died by suicide or accident, or the first victim of an epidemic. The name means a night eater, Nachtzecher, the after waster, if you will, the after gnawer. So they feed after death, which is suitably creepy in that regard. They can visit family members on the astral plane to drain their life form. They can also physically rise from the grave, sometimes in order to eat the corpses of the others in the cemetery, so a kind of a ghoul in a way. Their shadows were powerful and could even cause death just from the shadow. And some say that they could transform into animals, particularly a pig, in order to visit their homes and drink blood. So yes, you must put a coin in the mouth, decapitate them, break the neck, remove the burial shroud, and sprinkle the body with rice, which is an interesting thing by and large, but that's how you stop them. They are known to be referred to as the chewing dead, because you could hear chewing noises coming from underground from the tombs. So suitably creepy and awful in that regard. Were they real? Well, here's the thing, and you may make of it as you will in this regard. There's a certain amount of truth, because when people were buried, especially if the grave was not deep enough, you could hear the sounds of decomposition, which sounded apparently a bit like chewing, and therefore it terrified people into the belief that the corpse was in there eating its own body. And when they, of course, opened up the tomb, being superstitious people, and they found that decomposition had destroyed part of the body, they said that, no, you see, this Nachtzecher has eaten part of its own body and will come and eat ours too. So suitably terrifying to scare you. So, certain amount of truth to it in real life. How could you identify one? Well, this is how it works. They can drain your life force remotely. They can devour their own funeral shrouds and clothing, which is the first proof that it is a Nachtzecher. You should never put grave goods into the coffin, they say, because then they would come back with those things. You must make sure that none of the clothing that they have has their name written in, because that's a good way to get one of them to come back. Open mouths, red lips, or a soft corpse were all seen as signs that it is absolutely an undead. And of course, if the corpse is holding its thumb in its opposite hand, it's proof again. So there you go, varying versions of the Nachtzecher. Be careful, they will eat you. Now, we haven't spoken of certain specific ones, which we are getting to, I do promise you, and we haven't spoken of them particularly because they are going to be a jump to a topic that we definitely do need to talk about. So, as we are progressing, we are now going to speak of the most famous of the undead in stories, at least, and that is the Lich. Now, very, very popular in fantasy type stories and modern movies. The Lich is special because they are noted to be not only undead, but have very powerful magic as well. So there you are. Huge thanks for those likes there. Don't forget, like, subscribe, share. We require all of this to keep ourselves going, and it is you guys that make it possible. So just for that. So a Lich is an undead sorcerer, which is far more powerful than your standard Zom. So usually in life they were a sorcerer or wizard, greatly skilled in necromancy, which again is a misnomer, as we have discovered, because the modern view of what necromancy is wrong. Necromancy refers to speaking to the dead, not summoning and controlling the dead, which is the modern version. So nevertheless, we'll go with the modern version for the moment, because so they were particularly skilled in power over death, and use their magic and spellcraft to become undead. Unlike zombies, which are mindless, liches are sapient revenants, retaining all of their previous intelligence and magical abilities. They are thus depicted as holding power over the lesser undead, and uses them as servants and soldiers. They've definitely become very, very popular in modern stories for this exact reason. They make great villains as the last boss, as it were. We know that the most important bit of it is their magic, which allows them so much greater power. Now, how do you achieve immortality? According to quite a few legends, and even in fantasy, liches surrender their souls to create soul artifacts, either a soul gem or a phylactery of some variety, which serve as a source of their magic and immortality. And they take great precautions to hide and protect these artifacts so that nobody can stop their death, and they can continue on forever. So the obvious answer to removing a lich is to find this artifact and destroy it, which destroys their ability to maintain their life in the world, and therefore they will die. So if all of the lich's soul artifacts are destroyed, its only remaining anchor to the material world will be its corporeal body, which means that then you can go and kill it. The lich comes from the Old English word lich, which literally means corpse. So any body in the original meaning was a lich or lich, and you find lich in German is the same, and lijk in Dutch, and of course in Afrikaans a lake. It all comes from the same cognate. So yeah. Now, interestingly, The gate at the lowest end of the cemetery where the coffin was brought in by was referred to as the Lich Gate. You see that in some of the older graveyards even today. We've seen it in a huge amount of fantasy. I think that if you've ever read any fantasy whatsoever, then you've encountered a lich. We found them in Clark Ashton Smith's stories, Robert E. Howard. He was famous for using liches in his stories, including several of the Conan stories. Ambrose Bierce, H.P. Lovecraft, and so on and so on. Fritz Lieber in the story of the Thieves' House. That was a brilliant story. Fritz Lieber wrote some very, very good stories. And then, of course, Gary Gygax, the famous creator of Dungeons and Dragons, used them, of course, as one of the main villains. So, yeah, absolutely a hugely popular trope that started way back when in that regard. Nevertheless, moving on to my next long, and here is where we are going to get the jump. So, brace yourselves and make sure you have your tea or coffee or similar. Good tea is good tea. So, we now need to talk about a ghoul. Now, a ghoul comes from the word in Arabic, ghul, and it's a specific kind of creature, and it is a shapeshifter. So we mentioned it back in the day because of that, but it is also a kind of undead as well, and it preys on humans, both living and dead, in graveyards and desolate places. A flesh-eating monster, and it comes from the Arabian understanding of what are actually in origin one of the jinn. Interestingly, they are shapeshifters, frequently taking the form of wolves or dogs or hyenas, or other monstrous creatures. They are associated with graveyards and deserts, luring travelers to their doom to feast on them. They consume not only the living but also the dead. Now, they are absolutely something that turns up in all kinds of fantasy and horror type fiction, and we see them also used in the names of characters in comics to refer to those who are particularly bad. So one of Batman's nemesis is Ra's al Ghul, because he's a bad guy in that regard. Absolutely right there. So yes, but ghouls, well, in folklore, it's a monstrous undead creature that is a kind of jinn as well, known specifically for its cannibalism or the consumption of human flesh. And it came from the old Arabic, pre-Islamic Arabic, in fact. So its origins come from way, way back. And it's always associated with death and grave diggers, graveyards, grave robbers, and all of that. And the word ghul comes from the old Arabic gala, meaning to seize, to take away. So yeah, absolutely, a fearsome and awful creature that will chomp on all the relevant bits. Does this matter? Well, I suppose it's important insofar that you get different kinds of jinn, and we do need to talk about not just the jinn but the elemental creatures, and these creatures in specific, the ghul, have varying magical abilities, glamour to lure people away and to appear as other things, using illusion and such in order to get their meal. They are said to be, in their true form, very ugly and monstrous, and have the awful stench of death around them because of what they eat. And there are all kinds of stories throughout the Arabic culture on these strange creatures. They enjoy preying on young children, drinking blood, stealing coins for some reason, eating the dead and more. They generally can appear as the person most recently eaten, which allows them then to go back to the person's home, be let in, and eat the rest of the family. So very much a feared thing. Now, because they were said to be able to appear as wild animals, of course, when animal attacks happen near graveyards, people said they were not real animals at all, but were indeed ghul instead. Now, this has come forward in varying stories. Now, they are not mentioned in the Quran, but they are mentioned in the Hadith, one of the other religious books of Islam. And it is said that Al-Masudi, on his journey to Syria, he slew a ghul with a sword in a lonely place. So it was said that these things were very much real and could be expected. Now, in the modern stories, we know that they've been picked up and run with quite severely as being these undead, corpse-eating creatures and truly awful beings that lurk in graveyards and so on and so forth. And varying people may come back in this way. So Lovecraft used them, Robert E. Howard used them. They are all considered to be nasty, ugly, and in that regard. But weirdly enough, Lovecraft, the great horror writer, seemed to think that they were not necessarily bad. So maybe there is more to them. We don't know. Now, usually, however, they are always considered bad. But now we come up with a thing, because it is said that they are a kind of jinn, and we know in fact there are several varieties of jinn in that regard, without a doubt. But what are they? Now, here's a thing. As we've been doing the varied lives and the varied stories that have covered all kinds of creatures, we've discovered that certain things are said to be born of certain things. So the jinn are born of the smokeless fire. We know that it is said in many mythologies that man was born of earth or of clay. So there are races born of fire, there are races born of earth, us, and it seems that there may be angels born of light, demons born of shadow and darkness. Is this a thing? Are the different creatures that we might encounter born of different elements? Something that is the base of races that perhaps we don't know. And it was an interesting conversation I had, in fact, this morning with somebody who said to me, well, maybe this is actually a reference to different varieties of either other beings or even aliens, that angels are just another race, but born of light, just as the jinn are born of fire and we are born of earth. And by knowing that, we would know how different creatures came to be and why they have slightly different powers and understanding. So we do need to look into what we're even talking about. We can't have a scientific discussion of the weird and the wonderful without being scientific. So now that we have ended our undead examination with the Ghul, which is apparently not just that, but might be a jinn, we then need to go to the originating sources in Arabic and Muslim literature and look at what are the jinn. Do they have analogues in other cultures that might indicate that while different names were given, people absolutely did think that these things existed worldwide, like the Bigfoot or similar? Much thanks for those likes, by the way. We need to talk about that because there are a number of different jinn with different strengths, with different realities. Welcome back, Endless Thoughts. So what jinn are there and why does it matter? So for most of us, as you well know, in the West at least, we talk of genies, like you get in the story of Aladdin, a slightly goofy, thank you for those likes, happy fellow that pops out of a lamp for some reason. There is a reason for that, by the way. He can grant you wishes, and he is forced by his nature to assist you because you are the holder of the lamp. And there are all kinds of stories that abound about it. As you know, the story of Aladdin is one of the ones that turned up in the tale of 1001 Arabian Nights, which is a story about stories. Very interesting story indeed. And jinn or genie certainly do turn up. Yes, I have to say, of all the depictions ever done, nobody ever will replace Robin Williams as the absolute best. No, I didn't like it, I'm sorry. The new one with Will Smith, I just couldn't. Robin Williams will forever be the greatest genie ever. So I'm afraid that, I'm sure he was good, but he was spoilt by sheer brilliance in acting. There are few people who could match the brilliance and variety of Robin Williams as an actor. He brought his characters to life in such amazing ways. It just was that. But what is the original jinn? Because now we've said that the Ghul is a kind of jinn in its origins. Yes, Mrs. Doubtfire was amazing. But they're different from the genie of the lamp. So what are we talking about? Why are there differences? And here is the thing. So we know, number one, the jinn, singular jinni, which is where we get the Western world genie, are supernatural beings in Arabian and Islamic mythology. They are born of the smokeless fire. They are generally invisible, but can change their form, have free will, be good or evil, or neutral. They inhabit a parallel unseen world and have the ability to interact with the physical world if they wish to. Now, they are made from smokeless fire, distinct from humans made of clay or angels made of light. Like humans, they have free will, which means that they can be believers or unbelievers, good or evil. They live long lives, but they are not immortal. They are shapeshifters into human or animal forms. They are generally, as we said, invisible. They come from the Arabic word meaning to hide, as they are part of the unseen world, which is pretty fair enough, I think. They do have superhuman powers, but their powers are limited. They are mentioned throughout the Quran, and most particularly in the 72nd chapter, titled the Suryat al-Jinn. So they're a big deal within the Quran. They are considered both good and evil, malevolent and benevolent, and they can affect people's minds as one of their powers. And the only way to hold out against them, according to the Quran, is to seek refuge in God. Now, they are not ghosts or demons. They are a completely separate creation. But as we know, Hollywood has taken things on to a very simplistic version with lamps and more. So where does all of that come from? Well, let's do a little bit more of a deep dive. So I'm getting a little warm with all the hood and everything on, so just give me a second to remove a little bit of it. There we go, that's better. A little neater, a little better. Now, jinni. They are, as we said, quite capable of being faithful. They are not innately good or evil. Now, vampires, for example, are innately evil. You don't get good ones unless you watch glittery stories, which we will not go into. These are just like people in a great many ways. They are a kind of spirit in a way. There are varying forms of jinn. They can have relations in varying forms with human beings, apparently. And they are subjected at the end of their lives, at the end of time, to divine judgment with an afterlife. So if they were good, then great. And if they were bad, they're not great. Now, one thing that is mentioned strongly in the Quran is that they absolutely condemn the idea of, or the practice of, worshipping or seeking out the jinn. You shouldn't do that. Of course, you should never worship anything other than God, so there is that. Their bodies are composed in a subtle way because they are made of fire, not earth. So they are able to become invisible, shapeshift, often appearing as snakes or scorpions or lizards or as people. And I am told by some that they can also appear as dogs, wild dogs and similar. They can be very, very helpful. You can have good friends among the jinn. They can even be very intimate with humans, and they can have children that are half and half human and half jinn, but they rarely meddle in human affairs. They prefer instead to live among their own and avoid people. They have a strict and organized society, tribal system. If disturbed or harmed, they can retaliate in kind, which shows that they can get upset. They can even possess human beings in retaliation, which then requires an exorcism to remove them. They have been used to be called on for protection, both magical and otherwise. It is said that certain varieties were captured by King Solomon, who bound them into brass jars. Is the genie the most powerful being in the world? That's arguable, and it depends who you would ask, I suppose. They're certainly considered powerful, but then they have different ranks, so it would depend. So the lesser ones no, but the greater ones maybe. We know that these particular different creatures can do more than people. They are very magical in that regard. So there's all sorts that can be said, and we will look at what is written in the Quran about them as well. But it said straight up that you get different forms of creature that come from different things, and that was the main point of looking at it. So there are specific words as well where you will find that what they use to speak of spirits is not the same as what they use to speak of jinn. Jinn are definitely considered to be something distinct in that regard. Now, they are a bit connected with poetry for some reason, beautiful poetry especially, and with foretelling the future. Apparently the jinn know a lot, and they would inspire philosophers and poets. And it is said that the Arabian poet Al-Ashar is said to have gotten his reputation for poetry because of his friend Mishal. The Atu Kali Mishalan, his jinn brother, if you will, Aki Ijini, and the poet Tabit, who became a Muslim, was known as the poet of the Prophet, referred to his jinn friend as the sharp-sighted brother from the jinn, wa Aki min al-jinn al-basir. So it's recorded that the jinns would have human friends and inspire them. There's a story where one of the jinn fell in love with a human woman, and they had not only children, but he taught her the arts of healing. So they're a wise bunch and a strong bunch, but the relationship has not always been good, let us say, and Islam does tell you not to interfere with them. You should stick out of messing around with them because of the problems involved. Now, this said, we now need to consider, what are we even referring to? So in the different stories, they come in different forms. You get flying jinn, animal jinn, nomadic jinn, and jinn that will live in specific places. So the flying jinn generally stay in the air above. The animal jinn like to take the form of animals and move around and check out on varying things. Your nomadic jinn travel from place to place and interact with people, often to cause trouble. And then those that stay in one place just live their lives and have their society. You have your Muslim or disbeliever jinn. You get righteous jinn, which are very, very faithful jinn. But you also get levels. So you can start off and say you get the palis, which is a very, very low level and very stupid jinn that feeds by draining blood from its victims by licking the soles of their feet. It's little more than an animal, and so certainly wouldn't be a very powerful being at all. You have the Gilan, which is a magical jinn that uses different forms to mislead and harm people. The Vetala, which are vampiric jinn that inhabit dead bodies in order to achieve what they want. The Sila, which are very intelligent shapeshifters, usually female form of jinn. The Gul, which, as we have seen, are cannibalistic, feeding on human flesh, and shapeshifters too. You then get the Ifrit, very intelligent, quite mischievous, but often quite demonic in looks. And they live in societies hidden underground where they get up to varying things. And they might be the source of our idea of what a devil looks like. And then, of course, the most powerful types associated with water storms and the sea, which apparently the genie in Aladdin was a Marid. So different varieties. Now, there are arguments over how many types of jinn you get. Different ones say there are different varieties. The Hin, for example, are another kind of jinn, along with a number of other versions which speak of different types. They have the Hin bin Tim Rim Jan jinn and more that roamed the earth before humans emerged. And according to Ibn Kathir, who was a prominent Muslim theologian, apparently, the jinn that lived in the world shed blood and caused fighting, and it caused the angels to question God's command, and caused a whole big fight over everything. And basically they were put aside so that humans could take over, and that obviously, as you know, didn't work quite as well either. Some say that they flew in the air or took the form of dogs. They're mentioned in pre-Islamic Arabic poetry and varying other things. They may have been versions of things from different cultures that were elided together, which is possible. As we know, the ghoul is your witch type, absolutely powerful and very, very scary, as much as they are ugly and awful in that regard. The Jann could be the ancestors of the jinn. They were punished and transformed for what they did, causing the pre-human fight, as it were. Are you off? Well, good night, my dear. Have a very good sleep. We are almost done, but I do wish you the best of evenings, and thank you so much for joining us. I will definitely work on getting some kind of a hood for you, and we'll see what we can do to send one down. Make a plan somehow for all the support. So the Jann ruled the world before Adam, and war ensued between him and the angels, and this led to their downfall. Now, we see from this then, you have your different varieties. Your Marid, for example, are the largest of the jinn, and they are the most powerful magically, and the most civilized, it seems. They have the ability to grant wishes, hence the legend, but at a price. So do not think that it's as simple as it appears in the stories. And there are many issues around the getting of them. If you can get the wishes, of course, then they will do everything in their power to give you what you ask for and not what you want. So you have to be careful in that regard. Their name does come from the Arabic root meaning rebellious, and it has been said that these are the ones that rebelled against God, and that's why they are a problem. Is it true? We don't know. Another variety are the Ifrits. Ifrit, very much powerful as well, but more mischievous than the Marid. They are referred to only once in the Quran. So strong, absolutely. Winged, yes. Creatures of smoke that live underground and frequent ruins. They have a strong structured society along tribal lines, complete with kings, tribes and clans. Ordinary weapons and forces have no power over them, but they are susceptible to magic, which humans can use to destroy them, capture them, or enslave them. They can possess humans if they wish to. So that is certainly a part of it. There are all sorts of stories as to how they are viewed. They certainly look somewhat demonic, and they have deformities and claw-like hands, flaming eyes and more, and sometimes multiple limbs and more. Now, besides that, you also have the Shik, a half-formed, monstrous, lower-class jinn that were known to mate with humans to produce another type of jinn called nasnas. But they were genetic disorders at all levels, and they have part bodies. So you had that going along, and they weren't very good in that regard. They were problematic. Your lowest version, of course, the Palis, were the most deformed, and basically they loll around and cause trouble. They're fairly stupid and aggressive. But one such creature that may or may not be out there is the shaitan. And this we are mentioning because it is not a jinn. The shaitan is the evil spirit, and they will urge both humans and jinns to commit sins by whispering in their hearts. So we mention this because there is a specific distinction between the evil spirits, such as they are, and the other creatures. And we need to start asking ourselves, are there other elemental life forms in that regard? So we are going to, in the future, and not tonight, alas, start diving into what may or may not be out there, as it were, as elementals. But just to give you a little context, and unfortunately it is terribly small writing, but nevertheless, the result which we must affirm is that the jinn live in an established world unseen to us. They eat and drink, procreate, similar to humans, some righteous while others are not. They were created before humanity from the smokeless fire, and the Quran says, and verily we created mankind from sounding clay of altered smooth mud, and the jinn we created from the smokeless fire. Now, of course, we then do wonder, why smokeless? What makes it specific in that regard? We know that there are different varieties, some of which live among people quite peacefully. So there is that aspect insofar. We know that some of them are particularly negative, but in many ways it's just like people. They are not quite the same as us because they have subtle bodies, which means that they can move into this other alongside type world, which we can't see. But other than that, they're just like you and me. But this is not the only place we find creatures that are said to be elemental. There are quite a few in different cultures, the most famous of which that I know of are the ones which have come forward into modern mythology, the four creatures of the four elements. Gnomes, undines, sylphs and salamanders, earth, water, air and fire. So it seems that we do get a number of creatures out there that are associated with specific elements and may well have been born from specific elements. We see that the angels are said to have been born from light, which is pretty cool. We know that the demons are said to have been born from darkness. So it seems that there are creatures out there that might be just like people, but not quite. And if this is the case, we are going to need to talk about what elemental beings are out there. Where do they come from? Because it might be that we are talking about creatures that are possibly aliens, but our primitive forebears saw them as coming from heaven and therefore must be godlike. So perhaps what we remember as angels are aliens created from light, just as we are more physical. It's a thought. So with that said, we shall end off our live by saying that we are going to talk about what strange beings are associated in different cultures with what elements. We will go and do a little bit of a dive into that and see what is said about each thing and see if maybe there aren't commonalities to tell us what can or cannot be out there. And in terms of it all, do we need to worry about the things that go bump in the night? But until then, I thank you all for being with us. It's been an amazing life. We have absolutely learnt a great deal, I think. I am very, very pleased indeed with what we have found. It's been a fantastic live. I've enjoyed it immensely. And yes, do let me know what you think about the idea of hoods for the channel. I think it's a pretty cool idea. Maybe we shall do so. Strange hoods for strange bones. But until then, I bid you good night. Sleep deep, sleep sweet, but sleep with one eye open. Because remember, keep that holy symbol near at hand, just in case. For there are many things that go bump in the night. And if you are not careful, especially in the month of Halloween, they might go bump for you. Good night.